On today's show, the Senate advances a major crypto regulation bill focused on stablecoins. JPMorgan CEO Jamie Dimon says the bank will now let clients buy Bitcoin. And Coinbase's head of U.S. policy breaks down what the advancement of the Stablecoin Genius Act means for the industry. Welcome to CNBC's Crypto World. I'm Talia Kaplan. Major cryptocurrencies are mixed this morning, with Bitcoin climbing 0.5%, trading above $105,000 as of noon Eastern. Ether rose more than 0.5% to just under $2,500, and XRP dropped by less than 0.5%. Okay, let's talk about the top stories. The Senate advanced the Genius Act stablecoin bill yesterday on a bipartisan vote. The development came 2 weeks after Senate Democrats united to block the legislation. The procedural vote on the Genius Act was 66-32, with 16 Democrats voting with the majority of Senate Republicans to advance the bill. Democratic support to move ahead with the bill shifted after a group of bipartisan negotiators, including Senators Bill Hagerty, Kirsten Gillibrand, and Ruben Gallego, reached an agreement last week on an amendment to the bill that addressed key concerns for Democrats. Speaking at an event in D.C. last week, Gillibrand said the amendment would include changes to ethics standards and consumer protection safeguards. NBC News obtained the amendment, which circulated over the weekend, and confirmed it extends ethics standards to special government employees, which would temporarily apply to Elon Musk and the White House AI and crypto czar David Sacks. Citing sources familiar with the talks, NBC News reports that in exchange for the negotiated changes, Democrats involved in the discussion said they have committed to support advancing the Senate stablecoin legislation. The bill now heads to the Senate floor for full consideration. Next, JPMorgan will now let its clients buy Bitcoin. That's according to the bank's CEO Jamie Dimon, who's of course a longtime skeptic of the cryptocurrency. Dimon made the announcement yesterday at the bank's annual investor day, adding that JPMorgan will not custody Bitcoin, but will put it in statements for clients. He also made it clear that his personal view of Bitcoin has not changed, highlighting issues like money laundering. Dimon previously dismissed Bitcoin as worthless, compared it to a pet rock, and said if he were the government, he'd close it down. Now, this development is the latest sign of Bitcoin's entry into mainstream investing and puts JPMorgan alongside other major banks like Morgan Stanley, which already allows its financial advisors to pitch eligible clients on some Bitcoin ETFs. Last, as we wrap our coverage of one of the biggest crypto conferences in the world, Consensus 2025, let's take a look at some of the panels moderated by our Mackenzie Sagalos. One discussion with Robinhood Crypto's general manager focused on expanding crypto access in a global market.
Your CEO, Vlad Tenev, and you talk a lot about tokenizing private equity markets. And then I talked to Superstate about tokenizing, the public markets. So I want to unpack what that would look like. But first, what do you need from the SEC? What do you need from lawmakers? Like, does this stablecoin bill help you unlock part of your tokenization strategy, or is it really all about crypto market infrastructure bill?
Yeah, so right now the stablecoin bill is very separate. For tokenization, I think the main question right now is to understand, do you need to register the underlying assets, or is a token just a representation that can be tradable? And if that token is tradable somewhere else, what is the structure? Do you need an ATS? Do you need a broker-dealer? How does it work in the financial world?
At Consensus, Mackenzie also moderated a panel with PayPal's crypto chief and the CEO of MoneyGram on what's next for stablecoins. The discussion took place last week at the conference before yesterday's development for the Senate's Genius Act stablecoin bill.
What changes for PayPal and PYUSD once we see a stablecoin bill passed into law in the US?
It's super important. If you look at how financial institutions are looking at the space, there are companies like MoneyGram, like PayPal, who have been early in the game. There are a lot of traditional finance institutions who are trying to figure out, hey, should we get in? And definitely they are not going to get in before there is legislation that is passed in the US. It's super important for the US to claim back advantage in that space, that happens.
Now, we have much more from Consensus, including a conversation with the founder of crypto hedge fund Pantera Capital. You can check out all the full interviews from the conference over at cnbc.com/cryptoworld. All right, back to that development for the Senate's Genius Act for our main story. Crypto World's Chinea McKeel spoke with Coinbase's head of U.S. policy about what this means for the company and the crypto industry as a whole.
There is a lot of excitement about the Genius Act, really kind of a watershed moment or leading toward a watershed moment for crypto. Everybody wants regulatory clarity. It just would be the best thing for everyone involved. What to you is the biggest takeaway from this latest development that we saw last night?
Yeah, well, it's so exciting. 66 votes in favor of stablecoin legislation, the first crypto legislation in the Senate. To me, the watershed moment is really the future of finance is here. And the Senate is meeting the moment. And that I think is it's great for the 52 million Americans who own crypto. It's great for the next 52 million Americans who want faster and cheaper and better payment systems. And so I think the Senate is meeting the moment in a bipartisan fashion. And we have a few days, a week, 2 weeks to get this done.
What ultimately, should this bill become law, what would that mean for Coinbase as a business? What would it allow Coinbase to do that it can't already do? Or how would the company be able to grow in a way that it currently isn't?
Well, Coinbase is excited because stablecoins is a big part of the crypto market right now. It is the entry point for millions of Americans when they think about something that is stable, it's one-to-one, they understand how it responds in the market, how it can be used for payments. So it's really a critical technology. The other half of that coin, though, is market structure legislation and how we think about the digital asset securities and digital asset commodities. And these are really, it's the whole world of digital assets that we need to resolve and create a federal regime. So for Coinbase, we're very excited about the stablecoin legislation. We think that that will help unlock the very practical and what we think is a killer use case here, a killer app for crypto. And that's how we do faster and cheaper payments, is whether they're remittances, international transfers, the idea of having merchants be able to reap the benefits of having fast, cheap, quick, and easy payments. So there's just really a lot of things that stablecoins can unlock, but it really does go hand in hand with the rest of the crypto marketplace and the rest of the market that we really need to deliver.
If I recall correctly, I think Coinbase had said its preference was to see the market structure bill go first, or for the two of them to go together. Obviously, the stablecoin bill going first, still good news, but can you just explain the thinking behind that and why that was your preference?
Yeah, so it is great news. And that's really where we have landed on this. It's great news to see forward momentum and unlocking stablecoins. Again, huge unlock for America. The reason we thought that they should go hand in hand is because you think about digital assets and whether or not you're trading a stable coin for Bitcoin or for Ethereum, or for now, we really don't have digital asset securities yet on the market. For the last 4 years, those were largely shelved. We didn't have regulatory clarity around how these securities could come into the market, how they could be offered. So when we think about how the transition and how the trading pairs will work, they're all part of the same ecosystem. And that's, I think, where we thought that there were practical reasons to move these bills at the same time. That's everything from how do you structure the architecture to allow for the trading? We're a centralized exchange. That's what we do, is we allow for the buying and selling and trading of digital assets of all types. And so for us, there were very practical reasons to move them together. And ultimately, we're excited about however they get across the finish line. The president has set the August recess as a deadline, and Congress, nothing moves Congress like a good deadline. So that's, I think, why we're really excited that we'll get the momentum now, get stablecoins moving, there's the House bill with the stable bill, and you have the Senate bill with the Genius Act. And these two bills, I think, can come together in a really meaningful way. But we've got to get across the finish line in the Senate first.
What happens to the Genius bill now? When a bill advances out of cloture, what needs to happen next before it can actually become law?
Yeah, it's such a funny. I've explained cloture and had more conversations about procedure in the last 2 weeks than I think I've had in the last several years. Because the Senate, the Senate is a messy place, right? It's intentionally designed to ensure that there is a democratic process where people have the opportunity to offer amendments. And Majority Leader Thune has, I think, really adopted that idea and has spoken publicly about how he wants to have an open process. That means amendments. That means a lot of different opportunities. I think how they structure it, that takes a very smart parliamentarian and people who are, in the Senate and actually have that senator card. But ultimately, I think what it practically means is over the course of the next 4 or 5, maybe a week, depending on how they structure it, there will be a lot of noise. There will be a lot of conversation. There will be a lot of votes potentially. And we have to keep our eye on the prize and know that at the end of the tunnel, there is regulatory clarity for this important part of the market.
Can you give me a recap of what this journey has looked like in recent weeks? Because just a few weeks ago, this bill seemed to have strong bipartisan support that, of course, it hit a little bit of a speed bump. And then here we are today. Can you take me through that timeline of what happened from where you sit with your feet on the ground there in DC?
Yeah, well, it's funny when I think about the last 2 weeks. It feels like hurry up and go go go. But this has been a long, long time in the making, right? So the negotiations started months ago and trying to build a bipartisan coalition of the willing. And remember, it was also built off a lot of work that had been done in the House for the last couple of years. So this was really an effort, I think, that was quite a few years in the making, and now it came down to when you have to actually put your name on the paper and your vote next to it. That means that it's really, we're actually playing for keeps now. And I think that that's what you saw over the last 2 weeks was this idea that this could pass into law, and it's really important and everybody needs to take it seriously. And that also means all the stakeholders. I think where we were even last year, you didn't see as many stakeholders engaged, from traditional finance to other types of groups out there. Really, I think what you saw over the course of the last couple of weeks were people coming to the table. Really hard, honest, good conversations. I do think there was a lot of good faith negotiation. The first vote failing, I think, was disappointing. It was hugely disappointing for a lot of the players involved. But ultimately, I think that it made the bill come back bigger, better, stronger. And that's where I hope that it gets across the finish line this week, because I do think a lot of work was done over the last 2 weeks to get to the 1-yard line.
A really interesting political victory for crypto, which has really gone from being a party line issue to both sides really working hard to push this forward. So obviously a lot more support from Democrats than we would have imagined a year ago. Can you talk to me a little bit about the change in Democratic leadership and what you've learned in recent weeks about, the party of tomorrow versus the party of old, and what that could mean for crypto?
Yeah, it's what we've seen is that this truly is a bipartisan issue. And we've said it for the last couple of years, and we knew it. And when we think about if you think about all the Americans who own this, and they come from all different political backgrounds, they come from all ideological perspectives. And we really thought that would eventually be reflected in the lawmakers. And that's where we saw a stand with crypto come into play last year, electing the most pro-crypto Congress ever, both Republicans and Democrats. And importantly, I think Democrats bring an important viewpoint to the table, and they worked with Republicans over the course of the last couple of weeks. And they've also been working, I would mention, on market structure. We saw an excellent hearing in the House, 3 weeks ago, where it was a bipartisan process. You had some Democrats who left the hearing, but you had a lot that stayed behind. And I think Democrats want to understand, again, how does this leave my constituents better off? How can they use this to better their own lives, their own financial and economic freedom? Those are the types of things that I think both appeal to Republicans and Democrats.
One last thing before we go, Chinese-born crypto entrepreneur Justin Sun confirmed that he's the top holder of President Trump's meme coin and will attend a private dinner and a VIP reception with the president. Overnight, Sun shared on X that he's honored to support the president and excited to connect with everyone at the event for top holders scheduled for this Thursday. Okay, that's all for Crypto World today. We'll be back again tomorrow, and we'll see you then.